We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
We hear this all the time. We're like family here. But what if that phrase is why leaders are burned out? Teams get resentful, and leaders are avoiding the responsibility waiting for them at home. Work was never meant to be family, and leadership breaks when we pretend that it is. Hey, welcome back to the Northbound Podcast. I'm your host, Chris. This episode is a continuation of a conversation we started in a previous episode where we challenged some of those popular leadership ideas that sound healthy but create long-term damage. And one of those ideas is this phrase that we've all heard, we're like family here. And at first glance, or at first hear, it sounds warm and inviting and loyal. But over time, that phrase can lead to burnout, resentment, blurred boundaries, and leaders carrying weight that they were never meant to carry. So today, we're going to go deeper into this, especially this idea that work is not family and why confusing the two will quietly damage leadership at work and at home. So I'm really honored today because I am joined by my friend Matt Hallock. He's the author of DNA of a Man, the founder of the Man Warrior King Project. And so, Matt, you're on the call. Before we jump back into this topic, I want to give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself today.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for having me on the show here again. And I just wanted to say it's an honor to be on with you, to be talking this stuff through. I really appreciate you inviting me. Yeah, so Matt Hallock, as Chris said, wrote a book, The DNA of a Man, which is for helping men find their identity, to know truly who they are, who God has made them to be. I think we have a world full of men and women really who are always asking this question, who am I truly? What do I really matter? And so my book was designed to answer that question for guys. And in the work that I'm doing now, I help men repair their marriages, build confidence, connect with God in ways they haven't before. I've been really working to kind of rewrite the terms of biblical masculinity and kind of take it back from the realm of kind of passive wait and see, let's just trust God is going to do everything, to no, God wants me to partner with him to take action, to change the things that need to change, and to be an instrument of kicking hell out of my life and other people's lives. So that's the work that I do. And it's come from my own background of all kinds of, that journey, struggle in all kinds of different ways, and seeing God do great breakthrough in many ways. And I wanted to share that with everybody. So that's what I'm doing.
Dude, I love that. And you mentioned some of the struggles that you've had in the past, and I'm right there with you. There are times like all this stuff that we're bringing up today are things that we have worked through. And just like you, I want to help people as they work through that so they can learn from some of our past failures, successes, challenges, you name it. So let me recap again a little bit from that previous episode, Matt, so we're all on the same page, is that we talked about the danger of treating workplace like family, how it does more harm than good. We explored some of those hidden dangers of blurred boundaries and misplaced loyalty, all of that. And on this show, Northbound, as everyone that listens to it knows, we treat leadership like an adventure, like a journey. And so healthy teams on a journey are not built on guilt or obligation. They're built on clarity, respect, growth, shared purpose, hard work, and big time just trust in each other. And so today, we're going to connect that conversation to this topic of treating work like family, and why that often happens when even ourselves and our home life are not healthy and fulfilling. So the hot topic, I'll just say it, and that is that your family is not at work if you're listening today. And if you're the leader in charge at your workplace, so to speak, the people you lead, their family is not at work either, okay? So God already designed family, and work was not meant to replace that. So when leaders say we're like family, they often, without realizing it, invite emotional expectations, loyalty demands, relational weight that doesn't belong in that professional environment. And that's why I invited Matt on today, because he helps men and women through leadership in the home all the time. And so I want to rely on his expertise and his experience with that. And so, Matt, we've caged ourselves and the listeners. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that this can often happen. Let's even if, your boss, supervisor, whatever at work isn't necessarily like pushing this, even just a guy who's at work, who's an employee, who whatever, even somebody building a business, you can start to adopt this idea that, yeah, work is family, or work is like my family, or whatever, because of a couple of reasons. One, probably a primary one, is if your home life is not healthy. And I would say a very big, piece of that puzzle is your marriage. If you feel like you are not getting respected by your wife, you're not even really liked by her all that much, the things that you are looking for, your own desires and needs, are not being met by what in the way that they should be met at home, it's a very, very good recipe for pushing a man to look for all those things at work. Because if I'm not getting respected, if I feel like a failure, if I don't feel like I'm needed at home, then yeah, of course work's going to be really appealing if I am respected there, if people really like my input, if I'm not constantly feeling criticized and whatnot. And I know I'm painting a bad picture of a wife here. I'm just saying this is what goes on for men a lot. And I don't have to deal with like that tension or the unresolved conflict or feeling like my wife is avoiding me. I actually get like fuel from all the success that might be happening, the positive feedback, the affirmation and whatnot. So guys can, aside from like our already existent, kind of drive to find our identity and what we can accomplish and conquer, this will kind of push us in that direction even more, to be looking for our identity, our meaning, our value, whatever, from work.
That is great points. And yeah, you brought up men. I think it would probably be the same for both. But if a woman is not respected by her husband at home, she's going to look for that respect at work. And when she gets it, that's going to be, it's going to be really nice to get that. And so she's going to be putting a lot of time into that work and enjoying that, even maybe dangerously more than home life. And that's dangerous, because then, work gets emotional priority, which emotional priority should be at home. Home then gets the leftovers at the end of the day, and leadership really becomes distorted in both places for everybody.
Right. And I think that's why examining our inner world really matters about this stuff.
Okay, so what do you mean by that? Can you tell us what you mean by inner world, and maybe provide us with some practical steps forward, I guess? So like kind of go in a little deeper on what you meant by inner world, and then when after that, just tell us what to do.
Okay. We all could use someone telling us what to do. By examining our inner world, what I mean is looking at inside myself and asking the question, am I looking for my purpose, identity, validation, acceptance, belonging, my emotional needs getting met primarily at work? And have I kind of withdrawn the pursuit of those things at home because I'm so disillusioned with how it's gone over the years? So by that, I mean, like, we've got to get honest with ourselves about, am I truly operating in health, or am I not in how I approach work? So if we look at ourselves and we're like, yeah, you know what? I think I am beginning to emotionally neglect my wife, my family, my husband, if you're a woman. I'm neglecting my spouse and my kids because I'm getting more from work, and that's a scary thing. I don't want to go down that road. If that's what we're finding in that self-examination, then I think we need to go through a few steps here. So if I want to become a better leader at home, then first thing I need to do is be leading myself. And I might be fairly good at leading myself in some things, right? So maybe I'm good at leading myself in my work ethic. I'm good at leading myself in my consistency, discipline, whatever, in some ways. But wherever I'm dropping the ball on leadership at home and really plugging into home, there are other ways where I haven't been leading myself, guaranteed. And so I need to look at those places where I'm not leading myself and think, where do I need to get myself back on track so I can actually show up like a better spouse, a better parent, father, mother, whatever it is. So those places to lead ourselves, some key kind of, like foundational ones, time with God. Have I let that go for the demands of the day, whatever? Am I just even disillusioned with him? Whatnot? Do I feel like I'm kind of hiding from him? I need to get back into spending time with God, time in prayer, time in his word, just interacting and being in his presence, because that act of leading myself is actually helping me to get fathered again. And I think if we are getting fathered well, we're going to become good leaders, good spouses, good parents. So I need to be leading myself back into that connection with him. That might include physical fitness. If I'm letting myself go that way, there's a lot to be said for establishing disciplines and habits that are taking care of my health and my body, so that I am able to be the best version of me for the people who are closest to me. Leading myself might include goal setting. Maybe I've got plenty of really good goals for things at work and all that. But what about my goals for my kids? Like, am I just kind of riding the wave of their childhood and letting it be whatever it'll be, and I react in the moment when different things happen? Or do I have a vision for them? Do I have a vision for the marriage? Am I just kind of passively waiting for my spouse to change, and until he or she does, I'm gonna just be withdrawn? Or do I have a goal for what I want in the marriage, and am I going to start pursuing it like with intentionality, with almost with a vengeance, and say, no, I'm done just kind of riding through this marriage and this home life? And that's involved with like just establishing a set of values that I will be living by at home. And as a man, if I'm honest with myself, I don't value passivity at all. I don't value just letting whatever will be with my kids or my wife. I value having the fathering presence over my girls. I value speaking into their lives. I value being deeply involved and wanting to shape them. So I need to sometimes we let go of our values because of the emotional pain or the emotional dysfunction or whatever. I need to grab a hold of them again and become somebody who lives by those values, not somebody who lives by circumstances that are either good or bad. If a person isn't anchored internally, that person is going to look for anchors on the outside. And that's why those values are so important. I've got to be internally anchored. Otherwise, I've got to be anchored by something. And if for whatever reason home life isn't fantastic, I'll look for an anchor somewhere else. So in my book, The DNA of a Man, I talk about this a lot. I talk about, first of all, I think one of our most important anchors, if not the most important, is our identity. Knowing who God has created us to be is extremely important. When I can know that God made me to be valuable, he made me to be a world changer. He made me to push out hell and to usher in heaven. He made me a son or a daughter. Then I have this sense of belonging. And my book also talks about being a man of principle, where I'm not looking to people please. I'm not looking to just be reactive to good or bad situations. I have things that I've decided are important to me, and I live according to those, even when the people around me put up resistance. So this type of life, in my opinion, is what it takes to be like a warrior. So my project, the Man Warrior King Project, it's about, part of it is being a warrior. And warriors, they wake up in the morning knowing they will face resistance. They're not hoping resistance will go away. They wake up in the morning knowing they're going to face it, and they establish the discipline it takes to be able to overcome the resistance until victory comes. And so that's what we're talking about with this stuff. It's putting the pieces of the puzzle in place so that I can have that warrior mentality, that even though it might be a really hard task to start leading at home, I'm up for the challenge and I'm not looking to escape it. And as a king, So a king presides over his dominion, over his domain, kingdom, a king's domain. A king presides over that and establishes order. A king looks to see what the health of his people is. And he's looking for how do I increase their health? How do I decrease the dysfunction? And a king also operates from this position knowing that what he says goes. And so in my opinion, we need to understand the value of our words as leaders at home. What I speak, whether I want it to or not, it will produce results. So as a king, I have to understand that when I speak in my family's presence, to my wife, to my kids, to my husband, what I'm saying is like a decree, a royal decree that's meant to happen. So I can begin to reestablish order through the words that I speak. Then we have this other archetype of a lover. And in my opinion, that archetype is really, really grounded in the ability to be present, to be able to see my family for who they are, what they're feeling, what they're needing, and truly be engaged. These are the things that we want as leaders of our home. So if I can lead myself into this type of existence, it's going to be the foundation for everything else I do from here. So step one was leading myself. Okay. Step two is leading my family, not necessarily leading my team like family. So what does leading my family actually look like? First of all, leading does not mean controlling, domineering, dominating, whatever. A leader doesn't always say it's my way or the highway. Not always. Sometimes it has to happen, but in essence, leading truly means setting boundaries. So these are the things that are and are not okay with me. And as a spouse, that's how I lead the marriage, whether I'm a husband or a wife. I lead the marriage by having clear ideas of what I need from my spouse and what kinds of things are not actually good and working for me in the marriage. Obviously, I have to have boundaries with my kids as well. So I want to set boundaries and follow through on them. I want to provide direction. And providing direction is, in my opinion, it's all about, like, first of all, having a vision. So I want to have a vision of where my family is going. I want to have a dream for my family. I think direction, vision, they're both intimately tied up with my desires. What do I deeply desire to see in my kids and in my family? And I reverse engineer from what I want. And I think, okay, if I want this, then how do I build a vision around that? And if I have a vision around that, how do I build an action plan to get that vision so that those desires can come to pass? Leaders also have to absolutely give encouragement. So if I'm speaking as a king and what I say is a decree that will produce results, whether I like it to or not, I have to understand that my words must be used for speaking life over my family. I have to be building them up. I have to be speaking into them who God made them to be. I consider it that as a leader, I'm a prophet. And so what I say will happen. So while I'm setting boundaries, I want to be concurrently telling my kids, you're incredible, even though I just had to discipline you. You're absolutely incredible. You're going to become such an incredible man of God. You're going to become such a fierce woman of God. You're going to change the world. And yeah, you behaved wrongly, but that's not who you actually are. Who you actually are is this wonderful person. And so speaking life is incredibly important. And I think the final piece of leading the family is myself setting the example. Whatever it is I'm inviting them to do, I'm doing myself. And even when they do rebel, they resist, they disobey, they are still shaped by who I'm being, even when my words don't seem like they're getting through. So when all of this is missing at home, men especially are often over-investing at work. It's really tragic when they're providing these things for their people, their coworkers, their subordinates, whatever, but their family's missing it. And that goes, I'm going to call this out, that goes for pastors in ministry. It's really sad when pastors are giving this to their churches, but not to their families. So there is a huge difference between leadership and passivity. Leadership looks like everything that we've just been saying. Passivity says, well, like for men sometimes, well, my wife, she's pretty strong anyway. She kind of wears the pants, so she makes a lot of the decisions. That can be what passivity looks like for some. Others, passivity looks like, yeah, I know what I want, but it seems too hard to get, and I'm going to stop trying to get it for my family and my spouse. And that's passive. And sometimes Christians call that just praying and waiting for God to do his thing. And it's not. Praying and waiting on God does not mean inaction. It does not mean not doing my part. The boundaries issue deserves a moment, because sometimes people think that boundaries are wrong or harsh, or discipline, right? The topic of even spanking kids or whatever is harsh. And then, having boundaries with my spouse, like if I don't want to be talked to in a certain way, is it going to be too harsh to like cut off the conversation and say, oh, you know what, I'll come back in a moment when maybe you're more ready to talk kindly? That could feel really harsh. But boundaries are actually sometimes the best and most needed way to love a person, whether it's a child or an adult. Because sometimes we adults can act like kids, and we need boundaries to get ourselves back in line. If I don't have boundaries, what I'm doing is I'm enabling destructive behavior, and I'm actually shielding the person from the God-given consequences that are supposed to come when I engage in destructive behavior. So that goes for my spouse. If I'm just ultimately kind and sweet and loving all the time, no matter how mean or tearing down they are of me, I'm shielding them from the needed consequences of their actions. And that is not loving. So me making clear what kind of behavior works and doesn't is the most loving thing I can do for them, because it's setting them up to get their needs met as well. And this type of thing creates peace. So there's a difference between peacekeeping and peacemaking. Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. He didn't say blessed are the peacekeepers. When I'm trying to keep the peace, I'm just trying to keep everybody happy, no conflict, no nothing. Making peace sometimes requires conflict. Sometimes it requires a battle. Creating peace cannot be done while avoiding what I need to do in passivity. All right. So practical ways forward, what we can do, like starting right now. First of all, be honest with yourself. Ask, where am I hiding? Where am I avoiding leadership? Am I hiding from my family by digging in at work? Am I avoiding leading my family, and I'm just kind of filling that gap, like minimally filling that gap while plugging into work with everything I've got? Okay, be honest with yourself. 2, commit to going all in. If I only commit partially to becoming every bit the leader I can be in my family, if I only commit halfway, then I'm going to quit halfway. If I only commit halfway, there's going to be internal chaos where I start to like question, well, I don't know, maybe this is the wrong route. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should go back to what I'm doing. I have to burn the ships behind me. There can't be a way for me to escape this new territory I'm going into. Okay. 3, I've got to get alone with God. I need to repent for abandoning my post sincerely. I need to ask him for help. And that help looks like clarity, looks like courage, looks like supernatural ideas that God gives me when I don't know exactly what to do. But I think getting alone with God, it does. If I've made a habit of not doing this, it needs to start with repenting and then building from there. 4th thing, have a reset conversation with your spouse. That's a very practical thing. So if you feel like you have not been a leader at home, one way that you can start to move in a different direction is sit down with your spouse and have this reset conversation, which involves apologizing where you need to apologize. I have dropped the ball on this, and I'm very sorry. Maybe it involves setting boundaries. You know what? Things have gone this way in our family or in our marriage for a long time, and it's not actually working anymore. I'm going to set some boundaries for myself. I'm not going to allow myself to be this way, but there's also some things I'd like you to change. This is a very honest conversation that helps to reset everybody's expectations and cast a new vision of where I want our marriage and our family to be going. So this can look different. This kind of conversation can look different for different people. Some, it might need a lot more apology. Others, it might need a lot more boundary setting. For everybody, it probably involves casting a new vision and presenting it to your spouse and extending an invitation. Will you join me as we go towards this new vision? You should own your mistakes in this conversation without any kind of defensiveness. I've done this, and that's on me. And it takes a lot of humility to do a conversation like this, and courage. You're stepping out of your comfort zone of passivity and just trying to survive the way things are, and you're engaging in the battle, which is where God's been waiting for you this whole time.
Okay, Matt, I love I want to go back over a bunch of stuff you said, but we're not going to. But you know what? This is one of the reasons I love having you on. I love talking to you. I just, because I learn so much from you every time. And I'm listening to some of this and I'm going, oh my goodness, I have messed this up so many times. And it's like you went over how to lead ourselves, which was fantastic. And one, time with God, yes. And I don't do that enough. Time in prayer, again, don't do it enough. Physical fitness, I actually have no problem allotting time for that. So whatever, that one, I guess I'm fine. Goal setting though, I do. I set goals, and I set goals at work. When I was in the Air Force, I always had no problem setting goals for work. But then you said set goals for my children. I didn't do a very good job of that. So wow, that is like super convicting. And then living by values, love it. I love all of that. That was great.
Mm.
And so thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I appreciate it. And I trust that our listeners appreciate it too. I want to kind of sum this up now, kind of bring it to work and leadership. And I want to highlight kind of what I'm thinking after hearing all that. And that is that when men and women lead themselves and their families well, what's going to happen is that work is going to stop carrying the emotional weight that it wasn't supposed to in the first place. I see teams becoming healthier, boundaries becoming clearer, and then leadership is going to become lighter, not heavier. Because I know a lot of times when there's heavy things at home, we're carrying that to work, and we're carrying that in front of the people that we lead. So healthy teams are not built on guilt, obligation, any of that. They're built on clarity, respect, growth, and shared purpose. And we don't want our home life to get in the way, or vice versa. And so in wrap up here, I want to encourage those of you who are listening to stop saying we're like family at work. Don't say it, and don't treat work like that, because it will often hide unhealthy dynamics. Remember that work is not family, and family is not work. And those boundaries that we set, as Matt has shared with us today, they create safety, not distance. And so lead yourself first. Let God help you with that. Lead your family intentionally, and lead your teams professionally and purposefully. So Matt, today, before we close here, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I want to extend just a convicting call, especially to men, to take responsibility for the state of your marriage, the state of your family, the state of your kids. I like to reference Jocko Willink's extreme ownership. There's things in your family that aren't always your fault, but they're always under your ownership. How do I become a solution to all these things that are happening in my family, and take responsibility, and don't just hide behind God's in control and he'll do it. He's looking to you to take responsibility, because when you do, he meets you with miracles. He supercharges your efforts. It's not just sit by and watch him. And if there's anything holding you back, like, I just suck at this. I suck as a husband. I suck as a father. For women, I suck as a mom, as a wife. Those thoughts might have some grounding in past experience and failures and evidence that you could point to. But Satan's really good at using evidence to lead you to a bad conclusion. So those thoughts are lies from hell. You don't suck. You're incredible. You are a son. You're a daughter of God. And none of your failures have ever changed that, nor have they ever changed what you're capable of, nor have they ever changed the fact that if you decide today, right now, healing can be in a moment, in an instant. And you can be a new husband, a new father, a new wife, a new mom today, right now. That's it. So just make sure that as you're going into this stuff, make sure that you're vigilant. You're vigilant against that pull, because just because you're making a change doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. So there's a pull that's going to try to come and get you back to that place of escapism and passivity. So you have to be vigilant and on guard against it. And when you feel that thing coming, you reject it. In Jesus' name, I will not go back there. Thank you, God, for enabling me to go forward as a real leader to steward the family that you've given me.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thank you for that encouragement. And I love what you're saying about stewardship. Yes, let's be good stewards and let's lead our families as we should, as God calls us to, and then that's going to help us just lead at work all that much better and more effectively. So again, Matt, thanks for being on the show today and continuing this conversation with me. To all of you listening, if this episode challenged you or you want to encourage someone else, share it with them, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Matt, if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah, well, you can find me in a few different places. So my website is manwarriorking.com. So you can find me there. There's a contact form there. If you're curious and working together, doing coaching, something like that, you can reach out that way. You also can find my podcast, the Man Warrior King podcast, and all the podcast locations out there, Apple, Spotify. You can also find my YouTube channel on YouTube. And if you're curious about my book, The DNA of a Man, you can find it at my website, or you can go to Amazon, pick up the book from Amazon as well.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to put all those links in the description below, Matt, for everybody. So if you want to get a hold of Matt, there'll be links in the description to do so. Also, Matt has a community online. You have a school community, right, Matt?
I do. That's true.
And yeah, what's the name of your school community?
It's the Man Warrior King Council. It's just a community.
Okay.
There's a few free resources in there, some marriage trainings and stuff. Yeah, valuable things in there for free.
Okay, awesome. And then, as you all know, we have a Northbound Approach community as well, and I'll have the link there so you can go there, become a member, and we talk about these topics together and encourage each other there and go beyond just what we discuss in this podcast, and we can help give practical advice as well as just kind of those past failures, successes, so we can learn from each other. So, okay, I want to wrap it up, Matt. Thank you. Don't forget, if you are all enjoying this podcast, please give it 5 stars. Leave a comment of encouragement below. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Northbound, where leadership is an adventure. Go lead boldly, humbly, and confidently, knowing that you were created for this.